This is part two of a new era for deep space exploration and development. A new vision for a new era. The United States is crucially reliant on space systems, and the future sustainability and governance of space activities are a key strategic interest for the nation. If we are to have an effective American space strategy, we need to align our policies, programs, and budget with enduring national interests that span multiple administrations and Congresses. This means looking beyond individual missions and asking what values will be and should be part of any human future in space. The Trump administration seeks to ensure these include core American values we hold today, such as democracy, human rights, constitutional governance, the rule of law, and free markets. To that end, shaping the international environment and enabling routine operations out to the moon, with Mars as a horizon goal, would greatly enhance long-term U.S. national security, commercial, and foreign policy interests in space. So some quick commentary here. I, I, I understand and believe in those values. I wish we saw them out of the administration. Continuing on. The moon is more than a physical destination. It is essentially humanity's eighth continent, carved off our planet billions of years ago. It is a means of answering scientific questions, providing space operations with sustaining resources, creating new technical capabilities, training individuals and organizations, and forging new international relationships within a broad and adaptable space infrastructure. Our immediate purpose should be twofold: to develop the critical technologies and capabilities that will enable human missions to Mars, and to create the strategic national capability to operate on another planetary surface, starting with the moon. These capabilities will enable the United States to lead international and commercial endeavors for space exploration and development. Alternatively, their attainment by a malign competitor could gravely harm the international position and technical leadership of the United States. Although many countries may choose to operate in space, including potential adversaries, U.S. friends and allies should be able to rely on the abiding presence of the United States. So some commentary. They're talking about China. Um, as an American, I understand this. I do wish that we could see humanity as a whole. Um, it takes two hands to shake hands. So I'm hoping and I'm wishing that China will eventually be willing to cooperate and join. Continuing on. Geopolitical interests and objectives provide the historic model and rationale for practically all U.S. human spaceflight missions. These interests include security, commerce, science, and international leadership, or any combination thereof. The next steps beyond low Earth orbit will require cooperation among international partners for both practical and political reasons. The U.S. commitment to lead a multinational effort leveraging public-private partnerships forward to the moon is a symbolic and practical first step, as well as a means of creating a broader international framework conducive to the interests of the United States and like-minded countries. The geopolitical benefits of engagement with friendly growing space powers can support more ambitious space exploration efforts than science alone might justify. These efforts can, in turn, benefit the U.S. commercial space sector. For example, providing commercial cargo delivery to the lunar surface could be an attractive market for U.S. industry. Commercial firms could potentially provide communications and power to U.S. surface operations. The long-term focus on Mars and other deep space destinations provides a structure to drive the definition and implementation of capabilities and research on and around the Moon, such as nuclear power sources, long-term habitation modules, and robotics to identify, extract, and utilize local resources. An understanding of the criticality of space activities to the life of the nation and the need to secure U.S. interests in space necessitates a strategy of space exploration and development that exceeds our presence from low Earth orbit, moves forward to the Moon for a new era of utilization, and reaches toward Mars and beyond. It is not merely machines and astronauts that constitute U.S. space activities, but our values as well. As on Earth, the rules of the space domain will be created by those with the courage to go and the conviction to stay. The United States and other freedom-loving countries must drive and craft humanity's future in space. The United States cannot and will not cede its role as a leader of spacefaring nations. President John F. Kennedy challenged the United States to reach the Moon, and for his generation, that was an enormous, risky, and daunting challenge. President Donald J. Trump has challenged the United States to develop the Moon, Mars, and other celestial destinations, which is a modern-day challenge no less daunting. By accepting this bold call to action, we will enable future generations to build on our accomplishments with the goal of making travel throughout the solar system a normal part of human experience, with large numbers of free people living and working in space. So just some quick commentary. Obama had that vision, Clinton had that vision, George W. Bush had that vision, Clinton had that vision. I'm glad it's being articulated again, but this is not anything new. Continuing on. The U.S. vision for space is one in which there is a sustainable human and robotic presence across the solar system, and where there is an expanding sphere of commercial, non-governmental activities, with increasing numbers of Americans living and working in space. This vision begins with a campaign to utilize Earth's orbital environment, the surface of the Moon, and cislunar space to develop the critical technologies, operational capabilities, and commercial space economy necessary for a sustainable human presence on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The United States and its partners demonstrated the ability to maintain a permanent human presence in space with the International Space Station. This presence, however, still depends on support from Earth. As a next step, the United States should seek to develop the Moon, use it as a proving ground for technologies and processes that will provide greater independence from Earth through extraterrestrial operations, such as manufacturing, mining, and conducting cutting-edge lunar science, which will enable America and its commercial and international partners to mount historic human missions to Mars and beyond. In 2006, John Marburger, President George W. Bush's science advisor, articulated the case for developing the moon. The moon is the closest source of material that lies far up Earth's gravity well. Anything that can be made from lunar material at costs comparable to Earth manufacture has an enormous overall cost advantage compared with objects lifted from Earth's surface. The greatest value of the moon lies neither in science nor in exploration, but in its material. I am talking about the possibility of extracting elements and minerals that can be processed into fuel or massive components of space apparatus. The production of oxygen in particular, the major component by mass of chemical rocket fuel, is potentially an important lunar industry. This focus on further extending an extraterrestrial human and robotic presence and on the development of commercial space industries makes the Artemis program much more than a repeat of the Apollo program. A serious, determined approach to lunar development requires a series of pre-positioned logistics packages. A combination of 3D printing, telerobotics, and artificial intelligence could enable pre-positioning the equivalent of a small Antarctic scientific station. Newly arrived astronauts should have a substantial amount of resources already available and be able to spend their initial weeks building out the initial infrastructure for larger future development teams. Initially, government support for research and demonstration will be needed to determine the feasibility of extracting useful resources such as water. As soon as possible, and in accordance with the executive order on encouraging international support for the recovery and use of space resources, commercial firms should take over routine operations to provide consumables like water, hydrogen, oxygen, and utilities such as power and communications. The transition to private sector responsibilities will represent an important step beyond space exploration to development and industrialization. Landing American astronauts on the moon in 2024 is just the beginning of this great adventure. The following 2 or 3 years should see a very substantial increase in the capabilities of the lunar astronauts, the number of people working on the moon, and the robustness of the space logistics systems, bringing people and cargo back and forth on a routine basis. A large amount of the early work on the moon should be pioneering and maturing efforts that make expansion to Mars and beyond more practical. The moon is only a few days from Earth, while Mars is a months-long journey. The moon should be the proving ground for learning how to work far from Earth for long durations, to use local resources, to reduce and eventually eliminate the need for supplies from Earth, and to use robotics to pre-position and resupply surface facilities.